Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Temple of Possibilities. I am Minister William, or Reverend Will, if you wish, leading today's sermon of September 29th, 2024. And as always, we'll start with a moment of silence for prayer, meditation, or what have you. Thank you. Today's sermon is another one of the 17 sins. And this one is actually one people try to accuse me of when they don't agree with what I say. It is gluttony, and it is on ULC website, theministry.org. Be not among drunkards, or among gluttonous eaters of meat, or be the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. Proverbs 23:20 through 21. Gluttony is one of the 7 capital sins. The word gluttony is derived from the Latin gluttere, which means to gulp down or swallow. It means extravagant or wasteful overindulgence of food, drink, or other items of wealth. Its corresponding virtue is temperance. The origin of gluttony. When we think of gluttony, we are more likely to think of someone who eats way too much, a pig. However, during the ascetic Middle Ages, church leaders, including Pope Gregory I, had an expensive and more in-depth view of gluttony. Pope Gregory described the following ways by which one can be gluttonous and provided corresponding biblical verses to support them. 1. Time. Eating before mealtime in order to appease the palate. In 1 Samuel 14:24 through 27, Jonathan ate honey even though his father Saul commanded him not to. Food should be eaten before the evening. That's how I said it was how it was written. 2. Quantity. Quality. Seeking delicacies to satisfy taste. When the Israelites were escaping Egypt, they asked, "Who shall give us flesh to eat?" We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, and the cucumbers, and the melons, and the leeks, and the onions, and the garlic. Num 3:4 and 5. Even though God had provided them with manna, bread, to eat, they wanted better food. For this, God punished them. Stimulant. Stimulating the palate with sauces and seasonings. 2 of Eli, the high priest's sons, made sacrificial meat in a way contrary to the popular method. Quantity. Eating or hoarding an excessive amount of food In Ezekiel 16:49, behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, pride, full, fullness of bread and abundance, and idleness was in her and her daughters, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. Eagerness, being too eager to eat, even when eating the proper amount. Esau, the son of Adam and Eve and brother of Jacob, sold his birthright for a pot of soup. Okay. During Pope Gregory's time, gluttony was considered to be the least serious of the seven sins, with pride being the most serious. However, it is still a capital sin that, as was believed, would have serious punishments. Around AD 1308, roughly 600 years after the time of Pope Gregory I, a man named Dante Alighieri wrote the Divine Prophecy. In the first part, the Inferno, Dante and his guide Virgil visit the gluttonous during their journey through hell. This circle, the flesh and trash and perpetually rain polluted, nasty rain with hailstones. Here, the lustful and gluttonous, whose sins involved the obsession with bodily pleasure, were punished in a way that is appropriate to their sin. They extensively pursued pleasure in life and now wallow in a overabundance in which disgust. Among these sinners lurks the fearsome Cerberus, the monstrous three-headed dog of the underworld. Dante and Virgil escape by slinging mud into the dog's mouth, who, been a glutton as well, eats it and grows quiet. Modern-day gluttony. Today, the term gluttony takes on a more specific singular meaning: overeating. As you can tell, Pope Gregory I's view was an ultra-conservative definition of what it means to be gluttonous. By these standards, it would be difficult to not be gluttonous, especially in today's world. We are really being gluttonous if we have it. Are we really being gluttonous if we have a snack before dinner time, or cook with spices and seasonings? While Pope Gregory I's views seem outdated, it may still have some relevance. After all, if you look at the obesity rates in our country, gluttony certainly is a problem. However, we could use a little medieval motivation. The true problem. The medieval definition of gluttony is broad, and the contemporary one is narrow. So what really is gluttony? What is the problem behind it? Coming from the Christian proverb, or the Christian perspective, we should turn to Scripture for answers. With gluttony, the real problem isn't food or lack of willpower, but the affection of our hearts. Affection of our hearts. In Genesis 3:4-6, we see that the root of all sin is disaffection from God. You will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman, For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food, and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Satan used the fruit from the tree as a way to drive a wedge between man and God. He tricked Eve into thinking that eating the fruit would bring them into a greater identity and existence other than being a child of God. Satan bid them eat and become gods themselves. Even though they had plenty of food in the Garden of Eden, it wasn't enough. Gluttony is based on the lie that food is more pleasurable than God. Therefore, when we look to food for pleasure instead of God, or when we think that eating good food can be more pleasurable than a relationship with God, we are being gluttonous. Gluttony is not a lack of willpower, but is itself religious in nature. It is the service, devotion, or worship of the pleasure of food instead of God. Their end is destruction. Their God, their end is destruction. Their God is their belly, and they glory in their shame with minds set on earthly things. Phil 3:19. And then all it shows is different links to gluttony. So, like this says, just because someone is overweight does not mean they are gluttonous. It actually doesn't mean that they sit around all the time eating food, because there are some people who are overweight that hardly eat at all. That I myself and some that I know, and there are some skinny people who are like bean poles who sit around and do nothing but eat and never gain a pound. But yeah, it is worshiping food instead of worshiping uh, the God, whatever God you supposedly worship, or worshiping food over your God. But yeah, that is all for this week, and I'll see you next week. And as always, when we all come together, the possibilities are endless. See you later.